I'm gonna attempt to explain the fourth dimension and how fourth dimensional entities, which may or may not exist, most likely, affect our reality without us realizing it. Okay? So start with how dimensions work. The first dimension is one point. No direction or anything like that. It's just like one point. That's it. An infinite amount of points makes the second dimension, a flat plane. No up or down, flat plane. Now you have one direction, right? Now if I add another direction, that is sorry. This is the first dimension, right? One plane. The second dimension is two planes. Now you have a flat surface kind of thing. The third dimension is an added direction. So like imagine a cube, right? An infinite amount of second dimension, an infinite amount of planes like that, second dimensional planes stacked on top of each other is the third dimension. So you can think about it like, if you were to think about the fourth dimension, it's another direction, but we can't comprehend how that would look like because we only have a third dimensional perception, right? An infinite amount of third dimensional planes would be the fourth dimension. Now, we kind of think that life is all three-dimensional because that's all we can perceive. So this is just life in our eyes, like this is what real life looks like, and that's not true. Life is not three-dimensional. If you're going to think about, for example, poor example, but imagine a second dimensional world, right? This one plane. Bacteria is not a second dimensional entity, but it's easy to think about it like that. This little flat Stanley guy, bacteria, whatever, is over here. Now if I do a whip, right? I do a whip, and this bacteria guy, he moves to a different plane lower. He's over here now because I whipped him over there. And he doesn't see my hand because he cannot comprehend of the third dimension. He doesn't have this direction of up or down, like not technically up or down, but he doesn't have this direction. He only has one direction. And to him, he sees this morphed flat version of my hand. So he's going to see like a little fleshy looking colored thing, and then it's going to morph as it gets closer to him. Almost like the way that we see something from far away get closer, but he's not going to see the hand. So if this thing was conscious, how would it be able to know that this is a living, breathing entity that moved him? He doesn't know that, and he doesn't even know. He can see that the world is different around him because he's on this new, different plane now because I moved him, but he's not going to be aware that he moved in a different direction because he cannot perceive of that direction, right? So now imagine we're the little flat Stanley, except we're in the third dimension. If a fourth dimensional being existed, we couldn't see it. We would see some weird morphed version of it, or we just would not be able to see it, really. We wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Like, you know what I mean? It's just we could not know that it's there. So if you have this fourth dimensional being, right? It has a new direction that we don't know how that would work, like that. I don't know. We have a new direction we're not aware. We have up, down, left, right, like that one. But we don't have that new direction. Now this fourth dimensional being does its own special whip that changes our lives. But we're in the third dimension, so we don't see that anything has changed. Things are like maybe a little different, something weird is going on, but we don't see that anything is changing. This fourth dimensional being could very well affect our lives. It doesn't have to be a being. It doesn't have to be like alive or something. It could just be like, imagine a third dimensional rock, imagine a fourth dimensional representation of like a rock or something of the fourth dimension. Anything in the fourth dimension could be affecting us and we would not see it, right? And people and it doesn't have to be that there are only 8 dimensions. Like I'm pretty sure that there's 8 dimensions that are confirmed or something like that, or iffy confirmed. But there very well could be an infinite amount of dimensions, an infinite amount of planes that we can't conceive of, and we have no way of proving that there could be. Life might not even be actually in a dimension. We just have a personal experience of the third dimension, and Flat Stanley has his second dimensional perception. That doesn't mean that life is in the second dimension or the third dimension. This is just the only way that we can perceive of that, right? Which is pretty crazy. We could very well, like, all of the happenstances that we don't understand, the way that life works, if we were fourth dimensional beings, we probably would have had a lot more answers, right? But there could be a conscious living being among us that we are not aware of. We're not aware of its existence because it is in a different plane of existence, a different direction that we are not aware of. Now, because I'm on a roll, I feel like I'm going to explain how I view time. So, time, there's like time dimensions and spatial dimensions, right? Now imagine our time, we have past, present, future. It's linear. Time is linear. It's like a line, more like that, goes, right? There's a start and there's an end in our experience of time. But in reality, time is not a line. It is a point. A point in which there is no end or beginning at all. There's no time. There's no end or beginning. Everything just is, always existing perpetually in this one point. There's no, it's one point. There's no mass in a point. You can't measure a point. It's a point. And this ties to the Big Bang Theory, because people believe, there was this infinite point, and then all of a sudden it just kind of expanded, and then the universe is consistently expanding, right? But time is something that we as humans need so that we can experience our life linearly. We experience time. That doesn't mean that time just exists. Just like the third dimension is not just life. It's not, all of life is just only in the third dimension. It's just our perception of it. And time works in a similar way. So now if we think of that Big Bang Theory, right? How would that make sense? That time always existed, but for however long that we don't know, that we just had everything condensed and then it expanded? Why? How would it expand? If there's infinite point, there is nothing causing it to expand. Nothing is changing. It is stagnant in this point and then all of a sudden exploded. That doesn't make any sense, right? But we do see the universe is expanding. The universe is always changing. It's always expanding. So how does that make sense? There's a plot hole in this theory. I do believe in the Big Bang Theory, though, because if you think about time, it answers the question of the Big Bang Theory. If you think about our experience of time not being the real experience of time, it explains it. Because if you look outside of the human experience into this infinite yet condensed experience of time into one point, then in this point is, we are in this point. The point never just expanded or went back into itself. It is all in this point, and we're just experiencing a certain portion of that point, We are experiencing that point configured in a way that aligns with time. But nothing is actually changing like that. Everything has always existed, and everything always will continue to exist. So the way that you can imagine that is, imagine my life, right? Imagine it, I was born, and then I lived, and then I died, right? And now you have this line of my life. So if you were to look outside of my perception of time, you can think about it like every single part of my life, every single point in this line of my life is constantly not replaying, but it's all happening at the same time forever. So I didn't actually get born and then died. I mean, I did, but like outside of time, there was no beginning and then end. All of it is happening forever. Every single this present moment is happening forever and never stopping. A fraction of a second, right? Like the most, like, you know, a point, no time. That is happening forever, and also the point next to it is happening forever. You know what I mean? I feel like that makes sense. The best way that I can explain it. And so that is basic. And so this also explains a lot of other things. So many things about the way that life works. We just have such a limited perception, and we all kind of agree that like, I see hamburger, so hamburger is real because if I see it, then it's real because I know everything. And if I'm experiencing something, then it has to be fact because I am basically a god, and as humans, because we think something, it has to be real because we are having that one. Like, no, we're, as humans, we've been selfish. We used to think the sun revolved around the earth because we're like, but we are human on earth, so earth is best thing because we are human on earth. That's basically how we're still viewing life and how we're still viewing existence and the universe from this very selfish human perception. But life does not revolve around us. Life is not three-dimensional. We just are, and life is not time. We're just like, we have to accept that reality. Life, the whole universe does not revolve around us. We're experiencing a portion of the universe in a specific way. We're not experiencing all that exists. And so now back to the Big Bang theory point theory. So I'm calling it the Big Bang point theory now. So if we have everything into one point, right, it is impossible to think logically that in this one point there is a limit to what exists. There's like a certain number of molecules and a certain number of atoms and a certain number of quarks, and then it stops. That makes no sense at all. How is that even possible? Because if there's a limit to something, that implies that there is either a creator or some other form of science. It implies something that doesn't answer questions. If nothing ever existed, we weren't here, that would make sense. Okay, nothing exists and there's no life and no nothing. Okay, that makes sense. Because, you know, but how is it possible that there's only a certain number of things? No, everything is in that point. Everything is in everything that could ever exist, things we cannot comprehend. Every single possibility exists in this point. Infinite number of atoms, infinite number of quarks, infinite numbers of whatever. You know, there's infinity in this point. It's not that this point just is expanding and there's a certain, no, it is infinite. We're experiencing a portion of that infinity. Our life is finite. Our life ends. We have a certain limited number of resources on our planet. We have a certain limited number of planets that we can conceive of, at least. We have only one, universe. That's why I also believe in the multiverse theory, because if everything exists, if there's infinity, an infinite number of possibilities of physical, quarks or whatever the fuck, or whatever the smallest energy is, there's an infinite number of everything, then that must imply that everything exists, which must imply that since our universe doesn't have everything, since I am not also simultaneously, a pirate named Robert who's like a femboy, there has to be another universe in which that is true. There has to be an infinite amount of universes with every single possibility contained into them, right? Yeah. And so, and then now that I'm already on roll, I might as well explain my theory of reincarnation and the universal consciousness. So if everything was in this point, I believe, because consciousness didn't just poof, like it didn't just like it always existed, right? Because everything has always existed in this one point of the universe. The universe is conscious. There is one consciousness, just one consciousness in this point. And this point, divided into many, whatever, divided into our one universe, right, that we live in, which is a portion of this point. We as individuals get to experience consciousness and be unaware of each other's consciousness. But we all came from this point. We all came from that consciousness. If we died, right, and it has been proven our consciousness seems to go somewhere when we die, right? If this consciousness goes back to this unity, that means that we are this point now. We are this consciousness that is in this point, or that is the point. And this consciousness has all of the information, all of the memories, has everything of everything that has ever existed. So essentially, we die, right? And now this one consciousness that I'm experiencing, my limited experiences, are now combined with every single experience that has ever existed and will ever exist and could exist. So I go back to the universal consciousness. So essentially I have all of the experiences and all of the memories. We're the same thing. Me and you, we are both the same consciousness. We're experiencing different lives, different feelings, separate from each other while we're alive, while we're human. But what happens when we're not human? When we are what we always were, this point, this infinite consciousness, this infinite material, whatever. In this way, because we are this universe, we are this point, we're all connected because we are this point. Reincarnation, in a way, we're not a couple of consciousnesses. There's not a finite number of consciousnesses. That doesn't make any sense. People think that like, oh, like I have like 3 past lives. Like, oh, I have 14. I'm on number 14. Like you think that you share the consciousness with 14 people? No, you share the consciousness with every human, every being on this planet, and also in the entire universe combined. You also share the consciousness of like some other alternate universe where you are a pirate femboy named Robert. You know, you are all consciousnesses. And that ties into morality. The way that I see things, you treat people as you would want to treat yourself if you were them, because you are. You're not experiencing their pain right now because we're here in the 3rd dimension, in the time dimension. But you're not going to be like that forever, bitch. Like, you're going to die, and you're not going to be this one consciousness. You're going to return to the one unified consciousness. So in that way, maybe I can't experience your pain now, but I am experiencing it. I can't say not at the same time, because time is not real, you know, but not in this, you get it, hopefully. So anything that I'm doing to somebody else, I am doing to myself. I am feeling it, but I'm just not conscious of it. We live lives of separation from the universe. That's how we are individuals in the first place. We have limited perception so that we can experience our human lives, our individual, separate lives. We will return to this unified consciousness. We might not, and I'm not going to explain, but we return to this unified consciousness. And we have all of the memories of everyone, right? You cannot do something that is harmful to somebody because you are doing it to yourself. And if everyone was aware of this, we would not be living in such a shitty place, bro. It's just science. It's just logic. It's just fucking science, bro. Don't hurt that bitch because you're feeling that punch. You're just not aware of it now, but you will be when you die. So, at the same, and this also, if you think about it this way, and you understood everything I said, hopefully, nobody technically really dies. Being born and dying, this is a line in time for us. In reality, every moment is always happening forever. We don't really die. We don't really end. You know, we have always existed and we will always continue to exist. Death is just how we perceive things on our time on Earth. Nothing you do is meaningless. Everything that you do is meaningful to a point that we can't even comprehend. Because if we could comprehend it, we couldn't be human. We have natural ignorance. We have blockages. When we are born into this earth as human, there are blockages. We cannot see the fourth dimension. We cannot see outside of time. We cannot see how meaningful our actions are. We don't know what our purpose here on earth is. I do believe in a lot of spiritual concepts, you know, but I 100% believe in the scientific explanation of life. Because in this explanation, there isn't a one in total God who has feelings and everything like that and created everything because he felt like it. This one unified being, I would assume, does not experience emotions like we do. It's just a consciousness. Awareness outside of emotion, outside of thoughts, outside of feelings. It didn't create anything. It always existed and it always will exist. It didn't make you suffer because it wanted you to suffer. You were just one of the infinite possibilities contained in that point. Whether it be by chance, you can think about it, but it's like, yeah, sure, by chance, you are living this life now. But you're also living every single other life. You're not aware of it now, but you are experiencing it. And like, I'm glad that I feel like if I show this to somebody, they're not gonna get what I'm saying. And that sucks because I feel like I'm telling it so well. But like, I feel like I need to cut things out. Maybe I will. I'll just upload this, like no edits, no cuts, and then if I'm less lazy at some point, I will trim it down and add subtitles or whatever. But yeah, what else is there? Okay, let's see how spirituality ties into this, because I do try to separate science and spirituality, because spirituality is one of those things that you can't necessarily logically prove. Because again, emotions are very human, very third dimensional type of perception that I don't believe exists outside of our experience. Also very possible that fish, for example, we might just see a third dimensional representation of a fish, but they could be fourth dimensional and we just cannot perceive their bodies outside of the third dimension, right? Which is so interesting. And that's what people always say, cats are very spiritual beings. Maybe cats are fourth dimensional beings and we're only seeing this third dimensional representation of it. Maybe cats don't experience time. We just think that they do. Cats, people have said that, through research, people say cats, they perceive time different. If they don't get bored doing the same day over and over again, they don't really see things like that. They don't see things as like, oh, today is a new day, yesterday was an old day. That's basically what people have found out in the most simplest terms possible that I can, so it's very possible that other animals, any of them, maybe none of them, but maybe one of them might be a fourth dimensional being or fifth dimensional being, and we're only seeing the third dimensional representation of it. We have no insight into their perception at all. Right? Like, that's crazy. But how do you tie spirituality? So this is my working beliefs in spirituality. I try, when it comes to spiritual things, religious things, I try not to fully believe those things, because no matter what, anything tied to feelings is going to be skewed, right? I'm never going to fully comprehend the real thing. We can't. We cannot comprehend the reality of life, why life, we can represent it based on how I explained, time and all that. But spirituality, but there are definitely laws to the universe. And I think because time is not real, right? And we're only experiencing time, we can play with it almost. I don't really know how to do that. Also, astral projection can be explained as not really hopping between dimensions, because that is very not a factually correct way to say it. But when you astral project, your body, I mean, I guess other people have different experiences of it, but you're not in your third dimensional body anymore. You kind of can go through walls or whatever, You might see entities that normally wouldn't exist. You've never seen them before. Because there are literally proof, People have, for example, gone to somebody else's house and astral projecting, and then saw something that was happening, woken up, called that person up and who lives in that place, and they'd be like, "Hey Ron, I just astral projected to your house and your stove is still on." And they go, the stove is still on. They were there. And in that time, while they were actually seeing what was actually going on in reality, they also saw things that weren't going on in reality. Other people, they see entities. I've never astral projected personally. I want to, but I haven't. But they see these entities. I don't know what they said they look like. There's evil entities. I don't know. But from what they've described, these beings are always there. They're always everywhere, but we just cannot perceive it because they're not in our dimension. And I think it's so fucking interesting. But if there's also, let me show you. This shit is so life-changing, and I have not gone through a lot. I've kind of skipped the explanation of how they started doing the shit that they're doing. I'm over here, just about like that way through. Only the first book too. But in this book, you have this fancy sciencey lady, PhD lady, and then other PhD ladies, and they're looking into aliens. They're looking into aliens. They're looking into spiritual things, and now they're doing seances, where through special meditation, they're conducting seances. And one of these ladies, and this other dude and some other people, they're like, "All right, girl, you are the number one vessel. We're using you." And then, so she's meditating. They I don't know exactly how they did. I'm pretty sure they had something important to her, which was a god thing. It was a god thing. And that, because that's really important to her, and so she has a strong connection to it. Then they had her position specifically, and then this being Ra. This is such a complicated, you gotta find this on your own. Law of one, bro. But this is apparently a fourth dimensional entity, and they call themselves a conscious, forgot the word, bro, but they believe themselves to be a complex, a social memory complex is what they call themselves. So it's not one being that you're talking to, it's a whole many beings, collective consciousness speaking through you, kind of translating their unintelligible beliefs and thoughts into human language so that we can understand it. And it's also very interesting as well, because this was done, and it doesn't say when, 70 maybe, 1960. 1960, 1970, something like that. Late 70s, I think, maybe. And in that time, the way that, like, professionals as well, and the way that people talked was different. People used different words than they do now. People explained things differently. And you can see that English, like, preserved. And so Ra communicates through this girl, like, uses her body as a vessel to speak, and using the way that she would normally talk, you know, or not, maybe not how she would talk, but how humans in that time period could understand things. And it's like, for me, it feels like reading an older paper with words that we don't really use anymore to describe things. It's very interesting. And if I conducted a seance or something like that now, I didn't explain anything about it. I just ranted about it. Sorry. But maybe I'll explain that another time. But, like, it's just, life is so very complex. And I learned all these things. I did go a little crazy because it is the most horrifying thing that you can possibly imagine. If you believe in Christianity and the idea of hell, this is worse. And it's even worse because it is reality. To me, it is the most logical possible explanation of reality. And so, to me, 100%, there is no doubts. Maybe it's, in reality, can be perceived a little bit different, but basically, it is reality that we are all unified consciousness. Which also means that, like, I'm going to experience the lives of every single human, experience every single human suffering. I may be in this body now, and I'm experiencing this body, but I'm also experiencing the 4-year-old who was slaughtered to death and tortured. I'm experiencing every single human life, which is so awful. And then I'm like, but, like, now the way that I view people is so different now. Because I'm viewing people as almost like an extension of myself, but separate. You know, I'm like, and people fuck up their lives, and I'm like, oh my God, why did you do that to us, bro? Like, stand the fuck up. And, like, I try to help people all the time because I'm helping myself. But I have to place boundaries so that I can protect myself, my separate experience. You also can't help everyone because I'm only one life. I have time now in this life. I can't help everybody, can't save everybody from fucking up my life. Okay, Cassandra, you want to do 15,000 drugs? You're going to give us cancer. Oh, you died from cancer? Thanks. Now I have to go through that. Like, fuck you, Cassandra, you know? You know, and every single male manipulator pisses me off because I'm like, do you know what you just did to us? Like, I literally cried for 10 hours and you're going to feel it. And it's like, I want to be like everybody else and view life as simple, and I want to take revenge and I want to make you suffer, but I can't because I'd only be doing it to myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, fuck you, James, for fucking up my life, and I want you to suffer, but you're already gonna suffer everything you've done to me because you are me as well. So I can't even do shit about it, because if I do shit about it and I make your life worse, I'm just making my life worse. And it's annoying because then you always have to be moral all the time, and I want to be stupid sometimes, and I want to be ignorant, and I want to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna piss on your pillow, you know, but I can't do that because I don't want to be causing myself harm. And if everybody adapted this view and everybody understood how existence works in this way, nobody would be assholes because they'd be selfishness. Bro, it is selfish for me to do nice things or mean nice things to people because I'm doing it for me, not for you, for me. Even though I can't experience it now, I am experiencing it. I just can't feel it right now. So I'm doing it for me. Oh, you thought I complimented your outfit? I complimented my outfit, bitch. We did a good job picking out that outfit, Jeffrey. Thanks. But yeah, it's nice because you're never alone. I've struggled with feeling alone for so long. But like, no, we are never alone in this life. We are all one, just living out separately, for a time, for this one human experience. And it's just really great because you view life like this and you realize how insignificant but how big and powerful we are simultaneously. And like, then you go and take a piss, and then you go have a cupcake and you move on with your life, and then you plan for the next month even though you're this whole thing, you know. And it's just nice and also terrifying. But even though there is an alternate universe where I am forever being tortured, I am a flesh brick on a wall, conscious but cannot move for all of eternity, I also am a pirate femboy named Robert. So, to conclude all of that, we all slay, and we're all gonna get to be Robert. So, we're gonna get to go on those adventures, and everything else you can possibly think of. Be nice to people for your own selfish benefit, okay? And be good in your life and be good to others for selfish reasons.